If I can get everybody to take a seat. If I can get everybody to take a seat for us, please. Welcome to the Lost Town Hall meeting here on September 21st, 2022, here at Roswell City Hall. I'm honored to have my colleagues, Mayor Motley Broom from College Park here to my right, Mayor Jim Gilvin here to my left from Alpharetta, Mayor Deanna Holliday Ingram from Mayor of East Point, Mayor Peyton Jameson from Milton, Mayor John Bradberry from Johns Creek, Mayor Jim Still from Mountain Park, and of course, without saying, Mayor Rusty Paul from Sandy Springs. We're very honored to have all our mayors here. I have an understanding that Fulton County Commissioner Liz Hausman is on her way, so we hope Liz joins us as well. Obviously, an invitation has been made to all the Fulton County Commissioners. At this time, I'd like to call the chaplain for the Roswell Fire Department, Dory Griggs, to lead us in an invocation. So will you all please join us?
Please join me. Holy One, as we gather here tonight as an extended community, please be with us in these discussions. Be with the residents in attendance, help them articulate their concerns and input. Give our community leaders the ability to listen to the comments and feedback given and to help them discern the best way forward. Watch over the residents of each community represented here tonight. We ask for your protection of our public safety officers in the police, fire, and 911 communications departments as they seek to keep our communities safe. We ask for your blessings on this gathering and for traveling mercies as we adjourn later tonight and travel to our respective homes. Amen.
Thank you, Dory. This time I'd like to ask Roswell resident Wes Hills to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everyone, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wes. At this time, I have the great pleasure of introducing Channel 2 news reporter Steve Gilbert, who will be our moderator for this evening. Steve, welcome, sir.
Mayor Wilson, can you hear me? College Park joining us now too. So we have more mayors, more the better, and we have a county commissioner as well. But I have covered this story. I mean, I was at the initial meeting when the county presented their side and the cities presented their case back in July. We ran a story then. Did a kind of a preview story yesterday. So I have a little bit of information I want to just talk about first about what Lost is. If you're unfamiliar, I want to give they'll get into the nitty gritty and the details. I just want to give an overview. I get a little longer than a minute and a half like I usually do on television, but I do want to keep it short and sweet, but basically we're talking about a $300+ million pie every year that comes from the extra penny we all pay in Fulton County in sales tax. So you're talking about anyone coming downtown to events, buying things at Lenox Square Mall, whatever that local option sales tax, every penny collected extra in Fulton County adds up to over $300 million, $316 million a year. And every 10 years, there has to be this negotiation process between the county and the city how to divide up that money. And so that's where we're at right now. We're in the middle of negotiations. Mediation, I believe, begins soon in the next couple of days. So this process has to get complete by December 30th, or that extra penny goes away, and nobody gets anything. So this has to happen by December 30th. Now, I know the cities have their point of view. I'm staying right down the middle. I have no, just because I agreed to moderate, I'm just holding the mic for everyone. I'm not on the city side, I'm not on the county side. I don't even live in Fulton County, I don't live in any of your cities, so I live in your neighbors to the east or to the west in Cobb County. But again, I have covered the issue, and the initial offer by the county was 35% of that $300-some million a year. Currently, what they're at is at just under 5%. They get about $15.5 million to the county every year. The rest, the 95%, goes to the cities to split up based on their population. So Atlanta gets $130 million, whereas maybe Roswell gets $8 million. I'm not sure the exact numbers. They can get into the details. But that's how this all works. And the county, their point of view is, now that we don't have anyone who doesn't live just in the county, everyone basically in Fulton County lives in a city. So they live in one of the cities. There's only about 800 to 900 people in Fulton County that don't live in an incorporated city. So over the years, as the city's incorporated, all of Fulton County's population that just lives in the county has decreased, and that's where that number has gone down on the county side. Well, they want to kind of go back and say, we want the 35%. We have things they need to pay for, countywide services, the courts, the jails. They say they need a lot of money for public health services, public safety, support of Grady Hospital, behavioral health. So that's the county side. I don't want to get into all that, but that's their point of view, and they're saying that their taxes would have to be raised. Your property taxes in Fulton County would go up, and I'm sure you'll hear the same thing tonight on the city side, but I do want to now cue it up for all the cities to make their opening statements here, and I'll go ahead, and I guess I'll start with, I'll just kind of run down the order here, unless Mayor Wilson, you want to go first, or are we going to go, Mayor Gilvin I have here
yes,
from
sir.
Alpharetta.
Yes, sir.
Jim Gilvin from Alpharetta, he's going to go first, and then we'll go through each mayor, and again, I'll just walk around. We'll make it real informal. Some of the mayors may even get off the dais and kind of walk around with us here and address your questions, but if you have any particular question to this particular mayor, let me know. And but again, if you have a question after we're done with everyone, we'll just go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll come around to you. So thank you very much.
Well, good evening, everybody. I am Jim Gilvin, the mayor of Alpharetta, and I am truly grateful for this opportunity. I want to thank Mayor Wilson. I want to thank Mayor Bradberry, who was the actual creator of this idea to begin with. And it's such an honor to be up here with my fellow mayors, those who we've been working very closely with over the past couple of years. As you may recall, during COVID, we had a challenge with the county over distribution back then, and it came to the brink of a lawsuit before we were able to all pull together and figure something out. And so this is unprecedented, and I hope you can appreciate that fact, because this is an unprecedented challenge that we're facing. I've never seen anything like this in my life, and so it's really great to see so many people here, because, and I've only got 3 to 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to stay on time. So I'm only going to try to make 2 points in my opening statement, and I hope we'll get an opportunity to elaborate. The first is, this is critical, and I don't think most people understand how critical this issue is, because it's mostly been negotiated behind closed doors to this point. So it's important to bring daylight to this process and let the people of Fulton County understand what's at stake. And what's at stake is $3 billion projected over the next 10 years in sales tax revenue for all of you and all of us, because we live in the county and pay taxes here as well. That's what's at stake. And the most disappointing thing so far in this process was early in the negotiations when Chairman Pitts made the statement that we'll just have to prepare for life after lost. And I was, as a constituent, I was ticked, and as a mayor, I was disappointed, because this has to be a process where everybody that's elected to represent people in Fulton County are working together for a solution that doesn't cost our taxpayers $3 billion of revenue. That's much of it is generated from people who don't pay property taxes in Fulton County. They're people who fly into the airport for a convention or stay in a hotel for a tournament or something like that. So that's why it's so critical to have this revenue source that helps subsidize services in Fulton County, in all our cities, and the small, tiny portion that's unincorporated. So that's the first point, is this is critical. Pay attention, tell your neighbors, please. The second point I want to make is, and Steve touched on this a little bit, there's only one pot of money that's going to be generated over the next 10 years with this agreement. And the percentages, the agreement that is in place now was reached 10 years ago. Commissioner Houseman, Chairman Pitts, both voted for that agreement, and it was 14%, okay? And that 14% was based on the fact that they represented an area in Fulton, South Fulton, that was over 100,000 people. So they not only were supposed to provide county services to those 100,000 plus, they were supposed to provide municipal services, stormwater, road paving, police, fire, ambulance, and all of those things. So the only reason their percentage has dropped down to the 5% is because over 100,000 people didn't like the service they were getting from the county and incorporated. That's the only change. So the only thing that's changed since the agreement they agreed to then is that more people fled unincorporated areas and moved into a city, and they created a new city to provide those services. So every dime that comes to them higher than what they're getting now is money that's coming out of the pockets of taxpayers that are residents of cities. It's a zero-sum game. So it's not like, oh, we're just having a thought process here. It's real, and the changes are going to impact all of us in one way or another. I'm probably over my 5 minutes, but I didn't have a clock.
Where's the, oh, there it is.
There's one over there. I just can't see it.
There's no clocks here, Jim. We just go on and on in Roswell, baby. Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for hosting us this evening. It's nice to be here in Roswell with all of my fellow colleagues and mayors from across the county. I will say one of the key things, so I'm Dina Holiday Ingram, mayor of the great city of East Point, where there's no point like East Point. And I am, one of the key things that is different, I wasn't a part of the last loss negotiation, I wasn't a mayor at the time, but key difference is that all 15 cities are standing together. And so we have been communicating together. It started, as Mayor Gilvin said, with CARES Act funding. And that's when we realized there were a lot of things that we had in common that we could coalesce around and really galvanize and mobilize together to advocate for each of you, for our residents in our cities, to make sure that we were providing during the pandemic. And now that because of that strength in our relationship, we're able to carry that over into our loss negotiation, and that wasn't the case the first time. I'm surprised Mayor Gilvin didn't mention his slogan, which I like a lot, SOL. And that might ring a lot of bells in your head, but it can mean save our lost, is what we're asking you to help us with. That is absolutely Mayor Gilvin's idea. I like it though. So I won't reiterate the things that he said, but I'll point out a couple things. And so for the cities of East Point, Milton, Johns Creek, and Sandy Springs, the 35%, or even now there are 3 options on the table that amount to the county getting 25 to a little over 32%, that will result in charter amendments in our cities in order to increase the millage rate. So the millage rate cap in the city of East Point is 15 mills. And in order for this county to get that large of a share, so to go from 5% to upwards of a 600% increase, it will require, in order for us to generate the same amount of revenue, a charter amendment in our city to ask that we can go above the 15 mills, so increase our cap to increase our property taxes, right? And that is absolutely not something I want to do. I don't think we should be asking our residents or sharing with our residents we need to increase our millage rate so that the county can get more money to serve less people in a smaller area. Like, exactly, you can see how nonsensical that is, right? So 40% of the funding, that $3 billion that Mayor Gilvin mentioned, comes from outside, like non-residents. On average, so those people who visit all of our cities and come here from all around the world, they're helping to contribute to the revenue within our cities to be able to help us provide the services to you that you're entitled to and that we're required to provide. And so I think it is quite disappointing to be at a point in the negotiations where we are so far apart. And so the last time that in 2013, the county voluntarily and willingly agreed to 14%. They said, no problem, we'll take the 14%. And now they're asking for upwards of 30%. And at that time, the city of South Fulton was not a city, so they had 100,000 more residents that they don't have now, which takes them down to the 5%. So we have talked about this range of negotiation between 5 and 15% or 5 and 14%, right? Like maybe if we could try to reach some resolution or at least have some real conversations. But 25 to upwards 30% is just nonsensical for the responsibility that we have as mayors and as your elected officials that you elect to serve you within the county. And as Mayor Gilvin mentioned, in Fulton County, unlike some other counties, this county has 0.08% of the population. So we're literally almost 100% municipalized. And a lot of those choices weren't made just because people said, oh, well, they're great friends, but we just want to have a city, right? My understanding is the story of each city that has formed has been this concern or feeling that the services weren't being provided and wanting to take control of your own destiny. And so I stand united with all of our mayors of the 15 cities, including the city of Atlanta. Atlanta is very much a part of our coalition. And I think that is what is going to help us get through this. And we have to make a decision. We have to agree to this by December 30th of this year. If not, what does that mean? That means it goes away. If it goes away for the city of East Point, that's around $12.5 million per year. And that means that we would have to wait a whole nother year before we could come back to you as the voters to ask you to reinstate it. And so this is a very important issue. I'm glad to see so many people out tonight, because we want to make sure you are educated, you're informed, you have the information, you have an opportunity to ask questions, because we're going to need to get through this together. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Holiday Ingram. Yes, absolutely. She's not used to getting applause, especially when the mayors are meeting. We definitely don't applaud her, but no, so she deserves it tonight.
Thank you all so much for being my friends. Thank you for being a friend.
Now, I'd like to introduce the organizer, the brainchild, as Mayor Gilvin alluded to, the great mayor, well, at least temporarily, the great mayor of Johns Creek, John Bradberry.
Mayor Wilson, this satisfies my desire to understand what it's like to be a Roswell City Council member. So this is the closest I'm going to get to that. Yeah. Hey, I just want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I want to thank all the mayors, especially my friends from South Fulton that came out and made the trip, because to your point, Mayor, this truly is going to affect all residents of Fulton County, all the residents of all the cities. And so the point of this town hall is simply that we would have a conversation, we would have a dialogue, to understand this issue better, to understand, what are the different aspects of this issue. And, for me personally, I think that everyone up here is reasonable, and I think that the cities came forward in good faith with a reasonable offer to start out negotiations. When we got the offer from the county for 35%, that we knew it was going to be higher, but we didn't know how much higher. So we were in a little bit of a state of shock. My big question, and maybe that's something that we can get to over the next month, maybe tonight we'll shed some light on it, and I want to thank Commissioner Hausman for coming out. We really need... We're all adults. We understand that nothing is free, but at the same time, we cannot just always say that the solution is to raise taxes. And so what I really want to gain is an understanding of what is the justification, what is the rationale for the county to need, to want this huge increase in revenue that would come out of the cities and ultimately your pockets. Because so far, we have gotten just very nebulous, very loose ideas of potential things that they may want to spend the money on. But I think that the cities deserve and you deserve for us to know exactly what the deal is and why. So that, I hope, is what we get to the bottom of tonight. But again, thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and I know I speak for the rest of the mayors that we're all very happy that you kept your comments underneath 20 minutes. It's an unusual thing, so thank you. Next, we do have one male model, and I apologize, it's a mayor. It's the mayor of Milton, Mayor Peyton Jamison. Mayor, we're so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. I'm glad I can be the oldest mayor sitting up here. And I actually graduated from Roswell High School, so I visited this courthouse many times with the prior judge. Some speeding tickets. So I do want to say to Mayor Wilson, thank you for opening the City Hall to all of us. And I especially want to echo Mayor Bradberry's remarks and thank Mayor Holiday Ingram and Motley Broom to making the trip from South Fulton. I tell you what, that shows a great deal of commitment that all of these 15 cities are aligned, which is something that wasn't there 10 years ago. So I really appreciate that, and I look forward to making the trip to South Fulton for your town hall.
Thank you,
So-
Mayor Jamison. Yes, well done. Thank
And
you.
I know Mayor Wilson wants to get me out of here really quick, but I'll keep my comments brief to how this impacts the city of Milton. So our loss takes up about 30% of our revenues, which is roughly $12 million. And to Mayor Bradberry's point, and to Holiday Ingram, we have a capped millage rate. Our capped millage rate is 4.731. If loss goes away, if it goes away, we would have to almost double our millage rate, which is a double in our taxes to our residents. Our citizens formed the city of Milton for a reason, and that reason was not to double our millage rate. So it is extremely important to our citizens. We're in a good financial shape now. However, if loss goes away, that will not be the case. It's a huge impact to us, and I think after all is said and done, I think cooler heads will hopefully prevail, and the citizens will come first, and we can move on to our next step in working together. So thank you all.
Thanks, Mayor Jamison. And now I'd like to recognize, I guess, probably the dean of all the mayors. He's been mayor since 1892 and 93, I'm sorry. I'd like to introduce my friend Jim Still, Mayor of Mountain Park.
All right, thank you, Kurt. As some of you may know, Mountain Park is probably the smallest city in the Atlanta area, with one or two minor exceptions. I know there's a lot of numbers that are being thrown out and talked about as far as the lost. Our numbers are not nearly as big as what these gentlemen and ladies up here deal with on a regular basis. We're a small city, 583 people, no commercial, only residential, but lost is a huge part of our revenue stream. And if we lose that, we already have one of the highest mill rates in the area. And like my friend Peyton said, it'll probably have to double if we lose lost. And that's going to have a huge impact on all the citizens in Mountain Park, some of which are second-generation citizens that have lived there all their lives. And it's going to determine whether some of those folks are going to be able to afford to stay there. And that's a huge, huge burden to imagine that we aren't going to be able to meet the needs of that community and the services that we provide. And we're not a new community. We're not new like Milton and Johns Creek. We've been there since 1927. So our infrastructure's a little older than the other cities. And we're constantly battling the need for upgrading and repairing that infrastructure. So I won't waste too much time repeating everything my good friends have said. I do appreciate the ladies coming from South Fulton as well. I will go ahead and just wrap by saying that this would be an incredible, huge mistake for this local option sales tax to go away. With that said, we still got Mayor Wilson and Mayor Paul here to speak, so I'm going to yield the rest of my time to these gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim Still. Thank you, Mayor Still. You know, the room is always brighter, it's always bigger, it always seems like a bigger stage when you have Mayor Rusty Paul from Sandy Springs. Mayor Paul, we're glad to have you here. Thank you, sir.
Kurt, the check's in the mail. How many of you are experts in the local option sales tax? Do you really know what it does and how it operates and how it functions and what it's supposed to do? I didn't think so. I didn't think so. So if lost is lost, we're all lost. I'm going to get ready. We're going on a roller coaster ride. I'm going to try and operate some slides to carry you through what this is, what it means, what it's supposed to be used for. This has all been carved out in legislation. So we're all governed by this legislation and how it's supposed to be done and that sort of thing. So I'm going to try and speed read this, so hang on. Well, let's get through. What is lost? Lost is a 1% sales tax activated by a local referendum. You voted for it and imposed on the purchase, sale, rental, storage, use, and consumption of tangible personal property and related services. In other words, the stuff you buy. Lost provides property tax relief for revenues. It was passed to roll back millage rates and keep property taxes low, and that's what it's largely been used for. State law requires a periodic renegotiation. That's what we're in right now, so we're doing it. And as you've heard, it will lapse on December 31st if the county and the cities don't come to an agreement. Lost is one of the most significant sources of revenue, as you've heard, for municipal governments in Georgia, second only to the property tax. In Sandy Springs, it's about 27% of our total budget. We pay for police officers, we pay for parks, we pay for fire. We have an 8-minute ambulance response. We pay a premium to the ambulance companies to get that. That's where all that money comes from. In 2019, Georgia cities received more than $745 million in lost revenues. As you've heard, over the next 10 years, we're talking about $3 billion. So we've got a lot to lose if it's not just going to go away. Even if there's a significant change in the current distribution, that will come out of the city's pockets, out of your pockets, and it will affect fire, police, ambulance, parks, all the other things that you enjoy in that process. Now, here's the way it looks right now. You've heard the county's getting about right at 5%. The cities are getting about 95% of that, so that's the current distribution. If, as the county has proposed right now, goes to 35%, you can read the pie chart and see that that comes out of the local city treasuries. This is what we negotiated 10 years ago. County signed off of it, no problems. We had a little bit of problem on the city side, but the county and the city agreed 14% was an accurate number. And as you've heard, 100,000 people have now gone into the city of South Fulton. So Fulton County has these services they provide to 899 people, 1.62 square miles. And so you see now that their share of the countywide population is 0.08%. They have 2 miles, and their share of the land use that they, or the land area they cover, is 0.38%. Now, why does the county want to go back to 35%? Because that's what it was in 2005. Guess who was missing from the, in 2000. Guess who was missing from the equation in 2000? Sandy Springs, Johns Creek, Milton, City of South Fulton, Chattahoochee Hills. Who am I missing? 5 new cities. 5 new cities have created, and so now the total population that is covered by the county has gone from almost 30%, as you see, down to 0.08%. The initial offer by the county was that they would take, that the cities would split 65% and the county would get 35%. That is a 600, I was an English and political science major, not really good at math, but I think that's about a 600% increase over what they're getting right now. I'm not going to go into the double counting, but based on the way that the county is counting population in Fulton County, you get counted twice. So when you get on the HOV lane tomorrow, you're 2 people. And when they stop you, you can explain the county's logic that you're 2 people and you belong in the HOV lane. So the county's population is slightly over 1 million. The county is double populating, saying that that you're really 2 people. And so that's how they've come up with a lot of these things. Now, the current status of negotiations. Option 1, the county's provided us with 3 options. 1, they would start at 6%, which is a slight increase, and then they would ramp up to 25% over a 10-year period, netting about a 15.5%. Option 2, the cities would remain constant at 2001 levels for all 10 years, no growth. Anybody heard of inflation? Inflation in Metro Atlanta is 9.1%. Extrapolate that over 10 years, and the city's buying power with that money under that option goes to 0 at the end of 10 years. Option 3, the city share remains constant all the years. Only growth, we'll only get more when the city reaches, or when the county reaches 25%. Again, same thing. With inflation, our buying power for our police, for our fire department, for our parks and recreation, and all the other things that are covered by this will be basically 0 at the end of the 10-year period. So here's our counter proposal, is that we would increase their current share to 6.5%, and then increase it over the next 10 years, and that would result in about an 83.1 increase to the county over 10 years. Not 600%, but about an 83% increase to the county. So here's the impact on you and the services that are most close to you. It will have any cities here have any debt? We do. We've pledged our revenues. We've pledged these revenues for those bonds. And so we will have to figure out where that money would come from if our lost money goes away or is appreciably diminished. And the rating agencies, Sandy Springs is a AAA bond-rated city. We just got the AAA in the last 2 months. We will have our debt downgraded significantly if this happens, as will every city on this dais that has any bond debt. Your rating will be dropped. We're responsible for infrastructure that serves the entire county, such as roads, transportation, police, fire, emergency parks, government facilities. All the basic services that you get at a municipal level come from the people who are largely up here. And our ability, if we do need to issue bonds, will be severely handicapped. Now, here's the timeline. We started negotiations July 1. We've continued them on. We have a mediation as required by law on Friday. We will continue that, and then by not December 31, but my wife's birthday is December 30, and I will probably still be working on this around midnight on December 30 on my wife's birthday, which is not going to make my domestic life very happy. So that's kind of a quick primer on what LOST does and the importance of this to your local municipality. So I hope I tried to stay within my time limit, but maybe not.
No, I'm glad you went over it, Rusty. Rusty Paul, Mayor of Sandy Springs. Well done. Thank you, sir. So you can see all 15 cities are getting together on a normal basis, and Rusty and Jim and Mary Hammer, they're the negotiating team, and then on the other end they put me and Mayor Motley Broom, and we just kind of sit at the other end and play paper football together while the smart people are talking in the room. But we're so tickled that you're here. I'd like to introduce my friend Mayor Motley Broom from College Park.
Good evening, is that on? I'm not sure. This is a much fancier system than we have. Okay, all right, now we got double. I think this is good. Is this the on button? I don't. Is this thing on? I don't. Good evening, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here with my colleagues. No matter where you live in this county, you have great representation in the mayor's seat. They just such a great group of folks. I really have enjoyed my time as mayor. I've been mayor of the great city of College Park since January of 2020. So I got about 6 weeks before the world kind of fell apart. And that's been really difficult for us because we have 35 hotels and 11 square miles. Wow. So we are highly dependent on hotel-motel tax revenue to the tune of about $1 million a month during good times. So we've experienced a lot of strife for the last couple of years as COVID has made its way through the world. And so to now turn around and look at the possibility of losing LOST that takes up about 10% of our general fund budget is absolutely devastating. And it's not just devastating for the residents of College Park, because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, and you pick up the phone and you dial 911, you expect an answer and you expect a response. And that's what's at stake here. Our general funds make sure that first responders are at the ready to make sure that any emergency that happens in our cities is actually addressed and handled. And they do an amazing job. Our first responders, I can say in the city of College Park, are second to none. But we've got to pay them. We've got to make sure that those fire trucks and those police cars, all of the things that get them to you are functioning and in good repair. We do that through Lost. If we lose Lost, we're going to have to figure it out some other way, and that's going to be in the form of a millage rate increase. And in College Park, we're already proposing a millage rate increase, in large part because of Lost, because we are in that season right now, because we can't go for the second half of our fiscal year without those funds. So this is real. This is happening right now. We are having these discussions, and it is vitally important that you know, that the public is aware of what's going on, because this can't happen in the dark. If December 30th comes around and we don't reach an agreement, it will be every single person in this room and the residents of Fulton County that will bear the costs of that. And so I'm so grateful that there's been such a great turnout here tonight, because I want each of you to go and tell 4 people about this. Do your research. See how your city, if it's not Roswell, if it's another city, go and take a look at that budget. See how much of an impact loss makes. Because these are not, the pennies add up, as Mr. Gilbert said. And those pennies are the difference between being able to respond to emergencies and not. So thanks again, and thanks to all my colleagues. It was a great bunch.
Thank you, Mayor Motley Broom. She is unbelievable. She really is a lot of fun and has such great comments in all of our meetings. And I want to thank Liz Hausman, Fulton County Commissioner, for being here with us tonight. And Liz, I'm going to give you the microphone after I get through my words. So you get the final boom, you get to topple me, which is going to be really easy to do. I think Rusty said some things that were really kind of like, boom, just took us to the point. And I'm going to say to you as a fellow resident of Fulton County, that we're not in a negotiation. We're in Russian roulette. And I'm sure everybody in this room can identify at some point in your life where you've negotiated or been in quote-unquote a negotiation with someone, and the other person really didn't care about the outcome because they had the hammer. And that is the place where these 15 cities in Fulton County find themselves with Fulton County. Because Fulton County, at the end of the day, has said, it can go away. I'll even disagree a little bit with Rusty and Jim. It's not $3 billion. It's arguably $4 billion if you extrapolate some of the numbers. $4 billion, and lost is about one thing. The Georgia Assembly is very clear on this when they wrote the law. It's about tax reduction. It's about reducing property taxes at our level, at the resident level. It's a very clear strategy. And the cities, in their infinite wisdom, these leaders and the other leaders that are not here tonight, were very mature and wise. And they looked at it and they said, we understand that Fulton County currently gets 5%. Even though the summary of powers argument, you could arguably say that it's worth about 2%. We understand that the population representation of Fulton County is less than 0.8%. We understand that. But these people were all reasonable in their approach. And they really would have taken 5%, which honestly is disproportionate based upon population, summary of powers, any calculation that you as an objective observer would come in and look at this. I would argue that anybody objectively that would come in and look at this with no bias, you would say, oh my gosh, this is an unreasonable situation, and the best interest of the residents of Fulton County are not being accounted for. You have voted again and again, as Mayor Paul alluded to, 5 times in the last 20 years to create cities. And under the creation of those 5 cities, there's a summary of powers piece, which those cities have to execute certain duties. And they take on the responsibility and the fiduciary responsibility to do that. And in all 5 cases, those 5 cities have done that. And it's very interesting that, what was the basis when the last city incorporated, SOFO, South Fulton, when the share went from 14.9 to 5? What was the basis of the reduction from 14.9 to 5? It was population. Fascinating. Yet, take that out of the equation. Just look at the summary of powers, the very judgment that the state legislature wrote the law under, and use that as your guide. And you'll come to, again, that there's no merit, there's no basis for Fulton County on any of the numbers that they've thrown out. They are playing Russian roulette, and the consequences are high tax increases to us as residents in Fulton County and potential decreases of services. It's untenable. It's playing Russian roulette with your money as residents in Fulton County. It's not right. It's not funny. And I wish Fulton County does not want this to be a public peace. They do not want you to know what's going on. That's the reason, if you're going to say, God bless Fulton County Commissioner Liz Hausman for having the courage to be here. There's a reason the other commissioners aren't here, because they don't want to face the public. And I'll just say this again. You voted again and again to incorporate and make cities in Fulton County. You've already voted. And the state legislature created a very simple process under LOST, which is tax reduction. And it has a very simple explanation about how that is executed. And it's very simple to negotiate the terms of that. And these people, these leaders, your Fulton County mayors, have been incredibly reasonable and fair-minded about that. And the more that you learn about this, I think the more upset you're going to be about it as a Fulton County resident. So I cede my time and I thank you. Now, Liz Hausman, Fulton County Commissioner, thanks for being here.
Ooh, I think I broke your button.
That'll go on the bill, Liz.
You can pay for it out of the loss?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So can we negotiate it tonight?
First of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the warm welcome. Appreciate that. It was a little nerve-wracking walking into a meeting like this, so certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here and to listen to what the mayors have to say. First of all, I do want to say that I appreciate Rusty giving a recap of what LOST is, because it is very confusing, and also to talk about some of the offers that have been presented other than the famous 35% offer, which realistically started us off on a really, really bad foot, and I did not agree with that. I'm not on the negotiating team. I'm one of 7. Y'all know how Fulton County works. But, it is what it is, and that was the offer, kind of like when you're buying a house. It was the starting point of a negotiation, if you will. But it was a bad move. And I've told the commissioners that. I made a statement today at our meeting about it. So, to get off on the wrong foot does not serve any of us well. That being said, I do feel like we can work this out. I do feel like we're friends. I feel like we've accomplished a lot together over the years. I'm especially proud of the negotiations we did together to create the T-SPLOS program, for example. So I'm going to look at the glass half full here. I know that we can come together and come to a reasonable agreement, because nobody wants to raise taxes. I certainly don't want to raise taxes. I've never voted to raise taxes. All of you in this room, if you're a Fulton County resident, you all pay Fulton County taxes. So if your taxes have to go up on one side or the other, it's not a good situation for anybody. And I don't think any of us want to see that. I have confidence that we'll work it out well before the holidays, well before that 12/30 date. If we start really having real conversations. There are needs that we all have in our individual jurisdictions. I won't be around in Fulton County after this year to have to deal with the aftermath, but I will still live here. I do live in a city. I helped start one of the cities in Fulton County. I'm very proud of that. And I love the cityhood movement in our county and the richness that is provided. There is a difference, though, in the services that we provide. You know, there's no cross-pollination of services. They are very much different, and the services provided by Fulton County are county-wide services. Then there is a cost to that. So, you know, I'm hopeful that on Friday, when we have our first mediation session, hopefully the only one, that progress will be made, and that the people that come to the table on the negotiating teams will be realistic with their positions, because it can be a win-win for everyone if we approach it in the right way. And I'm going to apologize on behalf of Fulton County for starting off on the wrong foot. But we're not at that 35% offer, and that was withdrawn, gosh, a month ago.
Last week.
No,
That's when they presented it to us.
And to be fair, I mean, the new offers are not much better. So, I mean, I want to keep it positive, but, I mean, we're still in a state of very unreasonable territory. And again, Liz, you're brave to come out tonight. I want to make sure that we do not heap all the negative about these negotiations onto you, because you don't deserve that. But we feel like our back is up against the wall, and it's not, you know, I understand that I was criticized at the Board of Commissioners meeting because I was in a news story yesterday where I quoted the 35%, and it was made to be a thing that, you know, why did I quote that? Well, I mean, you know, we have been told that we were going to get an offer somewhere between 5 to 15%. That never materialized, and there have been a lot of things that we've been told that we were going to get in these negotiations that never materialized. And so, you know, I think some of the other mayors have talked about the fact that, you know, the only thing that we've got is you. The only thing that we've got is you, and adding sunlight to this process if we expect the cities to get a fair shake. And Liz, I didn't mean to jump into your comments, but I just had to interject that.
that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so everybody, thank you for Fulton County Commissioner Liz Hausman. Thank you. Steve, the floor is yours.
Yep, thank you, mayors and commissioner. Now, I'm going to open up to any question and answers, and we have, you know, a good half an hour or so. We're going to try to get through everyone, so just raise your hand. I'm going to try to get to everyone, and we'll start. I think I saw this gentleman's hand up first. Maybe just say who you're addressing your question to, and maybe what city you're from.
Yep, I'm from Johns Creek. I saw all the options there. I didn't see an option of no increase. That's wrong. What are you guys doing? 15 people? Mayors coming together? That option should be there.
Anybody want to address it? Just speak up. Or it all goes to Mayor Paul if nobody speaks
So
up. Right?
I'll just say, as one of the mayors on the negotiating team for the cities, you're right, that's not an option. When you have a party on the other side that starts at a 600% increase, you realize that the agreement, if there's gonna be one, has to be somewhere in between. And I can tell you, that is the ideal position for us, but that's absolutely has been rejected, will be rejected. And so we're trying to, as cities, act with good faith. And I will acknowledge that, as Commissioner Hausman said, she's not a part of the county's negotiation team. There are 3 people that are on the county's negotiation team: Chairman Pitts, Commissioner Arrington, and Commissioner Ellis. So the conversations that we've been having have been with that group of people. The cities selected a people for their team, and the county did as well. And so I do want to just echo that she's not on that team, and it doesn't mean that everyone on the team has the same position as the people that we're negotiating with, but I can tell you it has been quite challenging. And so we, just from a simple fact that we all agreed that we'd go to arbitration, and then the county came back, initially said yes, and they said no because we said arbitration would be public. They didn't want to have a public negotiation. They wanted to be private, and then they said mediation. And we said, okay, well, a compromise, good faith. We'll do mediation and arbitration. And we wanted to be public, and they were like, well, there's no, it doesn't, actually, Commissioner Ellis recommended or suggested that the mediation could be public. And then they went back on that. So there's been a lot of that going. And what we're trying to do as cities and as a negotiation team and as mayors is make sure we're acting in good faith. So that when we come to you and we share what is happening, we can share with you the full picture, inform you, educate you around what's happening, but also make sure that we're not going in with dirty hands, so that if this doesn't, we're gonna do everything that we can. But it has been quite a challenge. So you're right, there you don't see an option of zero increase, remain the same. That's kind of where we started at our first meeting. We went in and we're like, if we're starting anywhere, we're starting where we are, and the county said 35%. And we realized, as Mayor Bradberry said, that was shock and awe. We were like, the rumor mill was talking about an increase, but nobody said it was gonna be that high. And so we were really shocked by that. And so that's the reason why you don't see it. We will not reach an agreement at status quo.
Let me kind of lay it out, and it was alluded to earlier. Chairman Pitts told us in our negotiating session that if Fulton County gets so little money out of it, they might as well just let it go away. And what we're trying to do, and Mayor Holiday Ingram used not come out with dirty hands, we're saying, okay, you've got some needs, you've got Grady Hospital, you got a jail. What is the minimum amount that we can work that will get you involved so that you don't blow it up? So we know we're gonna have to give something, but what we're trying to do is make sure we don't, in the process of giving something, we don't damage our ability to deliver the basic services that you require. That's what negotiations are about. You've got compromise, you got to give and take, and we're trying to figure out where that is. So I agree with you. I think if you looked at it on paper, there's no justification. But when you're in a negotiation and somebody's got the ability to say, we'll just let it go, you're in a game of, the mayor used Russian roulette, I'm going to use the old chicken. We're running at each other. And if we don't swerve, we both get killed. So that's what we're trying to figure out.
This gentleman here, and then we're going to go over here. Yep.
If I could follow up on that point.
Okay, Mayor Gilvin.
As well, just to put hard numbers to this, and I appreciate your comment, because we all, as mayors, started off at 0%. But
Actually,
for
we reduced it.
Well,
It started at 2.
well,
Jim, can I interrupt you for 1 second? So I just want to introduce, this just to make a point. So the chief of staff for the city, for the mayor of the city of Atlanta, Odie Davis, just walked in. Odie, welcome. And the reason is.
He's hard to miss, Mayor.
And the reason that's significant, right, Steve? All 15 cities are in agreement. South, North, and the city of Atlanta. Think about that. Unprecedented. That should tell you something. All 15 cities are in agreement. That is not an accident. That tells you how insane this is. Sorry.
We could have stopped filibustering.
so, and just to elaborate on the point that's already been made, but with real numbers of these negotiations, as we've said, we're trying to negotiate in good faith, understanding that it could go away. And instead of offering 0%, as you look at the latest offer that Mayor Paul showed a little while ago, we're actually projecting an 83% increase in Fulton County revenues over the next 10 years. 83% increase. That's pretty substantial. Their lowest offer at this point, to show how far apart we are, is, I believe it was 21.9%, which is over a 400% increase. So we've tried to negotiate in good faith by not coming in with lowball numbers, except for the 2.5, I think, which was in response to 35. But those are the hard numbers that show the differences of our positions at this point. Fulton County's at over 21%, and we have offered them 83% growth over the next 10 years.
And we'll stop filibustering so that you got more time to ask questions.
Yeah, we want to get around the room, so let's start right here.
Rick Olson, City of Johns Creek. Thank you, Mayor Paul, because one of the things that you put up on your slideshow was that the Georgia legislature put this together with specific triggering events, and that's how the money was to be allocated. So I would like to think that in their wisdom, they made those specific events definable in a monetary sense. We wouldn't want Fulton County to say, oh, we want to pave the streets with gold and ask for more. but they don't want the cities to come in and say, oh, well, we have all this projected cost, when the actual cost of what the revenues are now are different. They're gonna balk, and you're gonna balk at their revenues. The citizens out here don't like to be taxed or have money spent on projected things that don't make sense. The legislature said specific triggering events, but apparently didn't rigorously define that in a manner that makes it cut and dry, that you can say, this is what you spent, this is what you spent, this is how it's divided. And if so, I'd like to hope that everybody gets together, but the next step is, after this is all put to rest, that maybe the legislature should go back and better define specific triggering events so that we don't have this nonsense every 10 years.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation. As an alumni of the Georgia General Assembly, the reason they didn't put specifics in and left it up, every county's different. Fulton County is the only county in the state of Georgia, with the exception of the consolidated counties, which are Athens, Columbus, Macon, and Savannah, that is all municipalized. In most counties, the counties provide a lot of services, and so that's why they're negotiating, because every county is different. Fulton is unique in this regard, so it's hard for the legislatures to put a one-size-fits-all, and that's why we're negotiating.
Tom Corrigan, I'm from Johns Creek. I don't think you're going to have to worry about Fulton County walking away. Because one of the things you brought up is each of you, a lot of you have debt, bond debt. And I'm sure Liz could tell us there's probably a few bonds issued from Fulton County. So if you're going to get hammered on your credit quality, the same thing's going to happen to them. So it will level that playing field. And I think the other thing is how these cities came about was because we felt we could get better police, fire, and municipal services given to us at a better rate, which is exactly what's happened. So if you want 35%, well then take back stormwater. Take back all these other things that we took on that you no longer do. The reality is you got to get something to give something. It's a give and take, whether you like it or not. And the reality is they cannot do a fraudulent act and affect your bond ratings. That can't happen. So think about that. You may want to spend some time talking to a few people, especially in the financial world. And I'll leave you with the final thing that came out today. It sure looks like a recession's coming. So, you know, there's a bunch of things going on all simultaneously. You can't do this in a vacuum. And everybody's got to wake up, because you're going to require much greater services for all the people who are going to be out of work and everything else that's going to happen. So everybody's got to play ball and play nice.
I was actually going to add something to that gentleman's comment, because I think it's really important to think about what's happened regionally. Voters in Cobb County had the opportunity to municipalize multiple times this spring, and they said, no, we're good with being a part of the county and receiving services there. But every opportunity people have had in Fulton County to municipalize, they have said yes. We are there, we are at your grocery stores, like you see me on the streets, like you know us because we're there and we're the closest folks to you. And you have made the decision to live in cities for a reason, and we provide services accordingly. But this will tie our hands and give us some really, really tough decisions to make. So I did want to make the point that, you know, all 15 of us, we are in concert. We are cities united. But we've got to get the county to agree. All of us saying we want this makes no difference if they say nope. And College Park, you may or may not know, is in Fulton and Clayton counties. We're done with Clayton. We're good. They said, let's keep it the same. And we said, all right. I mean, we did it over Zoom.
Same with Cherokee.
It was beautiful.
Boom, done.
I mean, yeah. They said, are you going to hire a consultant? We said, well, are you going to hire a consultant? Oh, I don't know. Nope, nobody needs a consultant because we're going to keep it the same. This is a good agreement and a good arrangement for the people. And that's what we need to keep in mind, that we are all here to serve the people of this county. But my 13,930 residents as of the last census are looking to me, and all the other residents that live in the cities are looking to my colleagues. And we've got to have answers about this, but we can't do this alone. So we need you to be informed and to take this message out, learn more, get educated, and just share the news.
Okay, thank you. Here you go.
Yeah, Steve Fontanelli from Johns Creek. With all due respect to you, Ms. Hausman, you've always been on our side. So I thank you for your service. Mr. Wilson made a comment earlier that they have a hammer. The Fulton County Commissioners have a hammer. Well, I'd like to make the point that we have a hammer as voters. And if these people are going to do this to us, they can say goodbye to their political careers because they'll never get elected again. And I think that you need to understand this in your negotiating. I mean, the point was made before. Why is there even a request for an increase, okay? Now, I'll ask Ms. Hausman, has the county suffered with the 5%?
No, I wouldn't say the county has suffered with the 5%. I would say, in the reality, that we have rolled our millage rate back consistently every year, okay? So we've kept our taxes at a revenue-neutral rate for 12 years. But 1 year that was a blip, but we've kept it back. So, I'm very proud of that we have not increased taxes when there's been efforts to do so, okay? Right now, we are faced with some really big ticket items. There's no question that there's a need out there. I don't know if any of y'all have seen the conditions in the Fulton County Jail. It's horrendous. I would think that everybody in this room would want to have our streets safe and make sure that there's a place to hold folks when they do things to people that they shouldn't do. Would you not agree that that's an important function for your tax dollars?
But if I may jump in for a second. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, please
Let her finish.
don't, okay? Please don't, let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I'm not trying to cut you off.
No. So, that is a big ticket item. We're doing a study right now for a new jail. We've got folks sleeping on the floors. It's a very unsafe condition. I mean, there are weapons being made out of pieces of the building. The sheriff rolled in just today barrels full of weapons that are being made in that building. It's a complete unsafe place to be. So that is going to be very expensive, about $500 million. We've had 2 hospitals close in the last 6 months, so that's another thing that we're faced with. So there are some very real things that have to be done by Fulton County. Again, I think the 35% was a very bad way to start off these negotiations, okay? But I do feel like there is a compromise that can be reached that will be okay for everyone. I'm very hopeful of that, but I think that we have to approach this in a way that how can everybody remain whole and meet the needs of the communities they serve, and that's our goal.
Okay.
My goal, and I'm not on the team.
Thank you, Judge. I just want to remind everybody that we do have a hammer, and that's the voters. So, anyway, appreciate it.
You've got one other hammer too. It is if you agree with the county, let us know. If you agree with us, let your commissioners know. Call them, email them, text them, see them, go to their office. Don't wait till the next election. We need it now.
Rusty, thank you. That's just Rusty. Rusty is so spot on. Thank you, Rusty, for saying that. It is time for you to communicate with your Fulton County commissioners now. This is not about future elections. It's about now. communicating with your Fulton County Commissioners and saying, hey, what is up with this? Thank you, Rusty. I know Jim, sorry, Jim, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to just respond. So I don't think there's anybody in this room that does not wish for different aspects of Fulton County government to be improved. That is something that I think we can all agree on. I agree with Commissioner Hausman. I deplore the conditions at the Rice Street Jail. However, we are in a negotiation that is supposed to be based on data and the law. To the point about supplementary powers, the jails and prisoners is not an allowable expenditure for the lost proceeds, okay? Grady Hospital, if you saw the Atlanta Journal-Constitution last week, the governor announced a bailout package for the Grady Health System of $160 million. So I am very open to doing what is reasonable, but I just want to share one thing. This is, you're not going to be able to really see this very well, but this is the county public safety expenditures. Now, somehow the population that they serve for the public safety as far as police and fire, sheriff is all across the county. But so it has been reduced, you've heard this ad nauseum tonight, down to 2 square miles, less than 900 people. But so somehow, in just a few years, the administration cost went from $2 million to $32 million. So there are opportunities to make improvements, and we're not unreasonable up here, but we've got to start getting down to brass tacks about what exactly are the needs and what is going to be the sacrifice on the Fulton County side as well to meet us in the middle.
Well, when it comes to the jail, the City of Atlanta just gave Fulton County 4 free years of jail space. So that's at least a big step in the right direction. I salute Mayor Dickens and his team for stepping up. And he paid a price in his community for doing that. Also, you remember during the bailout during the COVID period, the county got all of the ARPA money and kept all of the ARPA money, put $70 million into the court system, and they still haven't reduced the backlog. So what are they going to do with the existing money if what they've already spent on these things hasn't reduced the backlogs in the courtrooms? It's going to take a different approach, and it's not all money to get these things fixed.
I have to chime in really quickly with the mentioning of health care. I think that is an absolutely disingenuous argument to be made by the county at this point. So as the mayor of the city of East Point, AMC South is in East Point. It serves South Fulton. It is the only hospital south of Atlanta to serve all of the cities in South Atlanta. I went to Chairman Pitt's pre-pandemic, right? I can't remember if it was 18 or 19, but pre-pandemic, and said, look, this hospital is serving the same patient mix as Grady, right? So a large uninsured population mix. You're giving Grady over $40 million per year, right? So is there something, they don't need $40 million, but is there something that the county can do to help provide and ensure that we have accessible, affordable, high-quality, comprehensive health care in our community with some level of acute care? You know what happened? Nothing. So this $11 million that they're willing to stroke a check for just right now is an insult, because had they stroked the check for that pre-pandemic, we might not be in this situation. So it's not really about caring about health care. AMC in downtown Atlanta is closing. So this newfound election year desire to stroke checks for health care is an absolute insult. Because if there was a care about the people in our communities, those checks would have been stroked before now. So yeah, there's a need, and yeah, that's gonna happen, but miss me on the care, because that $11 million is a little too late. Because even with stroking the check, we won't have a hospital closer than Grady. So you know what, 10, 12, 15 miles in Atlanta traffic, that could be an hour. That's life or death for someone to be able to get to a hospital for care. So I'm gonna continue to be passionate when they raise that, because I know, look, it's healthcare, mental health, and jails. The reality of it is cities are kept safe by police officers and the resources we have in the communities before people get locked up. So yes, just because people make bad decisions and they end up in jail, they should not be in deplorable conditions. But come on, let's not start playing politics about people. And we are advocating for each and every one of you.
I have hands up back here, then I'm going to get over there and just keep your hands up because we're going to keep going. As long as we have a great crowd and everyone's engaged, we'll just keep asking questions. So just go ahead and keep your hands up.
If I could, I want to expand on that last point. Since Commissioner Hausman said that they, are very proud of the tax decreases, and I'm glad to hear that my property taxes from Fulton County this year are going down. But to Ms. Holiday Ingram's point is the strokes that they're doing with checks now are coming out of your pockets in the cities, because they reduced the millage rate in their budget a few weeks ago and then turn right around and try to beat up the residents of our cities to recoup hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue from the lost. That's not being generous. That's not being fiscally responsible. That's being very politically savvy, hoping you'll get out of it by having these people in this room pick up the check for them taking credit for tax cuts. That's what gets me a little fired up.
My name's Dave Woodrow. I'm from Roswell, and I tell you what, I certainly appreciate the attendance tonight. There's some things that are abundantly clear to me. One is we do have great leadership in the cities, and there is a reason why we created those municipalities. The other is that, and I too am part of the Commissioner Hausman fan club, shows a lot of class by coming here this evening. And the other thing that is abundantly clear to me are 6 empty seats up there. Now I have personally, because I have an interest in this, everyone should, it is critical. I personally have called Commissioner Ellis's office multiple times, and I have not gotten any kind of a response. Now I'm sure the gentleman's busy, but I'll give him a pass on that, or his staff. But tonight, this is inexcusable. And gentlemen over here, you touched on what I really wanted to ask, and that is specifically, what can we do? Because the voting cycle on this and the timetable for the conclusion, a resolution on this, are inconvenient. So are there some specific things that we can do, the HOAs, various other groups, to absolutely make sure that our voices are heard on this? Because this appears tone deaf to me up here. These ladies drove from, pretty great distances. These commissioners can't imagine the coincidence that would lead all of them to be unable to attend. So again, I'm back to you ladies and gentlemen, and I'd be happy later on to talk specifically with people. What can we do that will actually, make a difference?
If they're not calling you back, send them emails. I guarantee you they're reading their emails. So get their email address and let them hear from you. The only way this is going to get fixed is we're going to be up here working on your behalf, but you're going to have to weigh in on this debate. You may agree that Fulton County needs all these resources. If so, tell us. We'll listen. But if you don't, tell them. Either by email, text message, smoke signals, whatever. Let them know how you feel.
There are 2 elections, too. I mean, there are some Fulton County seats that are actively being sought by different candidates. So those are worth paying attention to. They may not remedy this situation now, but they are certainly part of the future. So there are Fulton County Commissioner seats up for election on November the 8th. So one thing, Dave, I would say is everybody who has a Fulton County Commissioner seat up for speed, I would get clarity from those candidates who are running for Fulton County Commissioner, what their position would be on this if they were a Fulton County Commissioner. How would you vote? What would your position be? That's, I think, important in terms of the future. So these candidates that are running, find out what their position is. But Dave, I think Mr. Gilbert might want to talk to you. Who knows? Maybe get a position on this. Exactly. And to Rusty's point, you cannot communicate enough with us, and you cannot communicate enough with Fulton County Commissioners. In the absence of information, in the absence of voters and residents weighing in, then people don't change their positions. It is time for the people of Fulton County to weigh in.
Hi, thank you for all the mayors and working on this together and stand with the people. And also, as Ms. Hausman brought up, Fulton County has some real issues, but my question is that can Fulton County work on your side to look at your budget, if there are any wasteful spending, irresponsible spending. And I did some research over the internet. For Georgia counties, the compensation for county commissioners has a wide variety of ranges, anywhere from $40,000 to $160,000. And some county commissioners also got like 22% of the bonuses. So that'll add up to like 200,000 income yearly. And I also look at the median income of ordinary people. The Atlanta number is 36,000. And for the state of Georgia is $30,000. So, can the county do something about it to sacrifice your interest? And because the inflation and everything is real problem for ordinary people. So that's the comment I want to make. Thank you.
I want to thank you for that question, and absolutely that's what we're doing. We did a line item today to cut $12.5 million out of one of the services that we're providing. We are looking at a hiring freeze for the positions that are funded but not filled. That'll be a significant reduction. We went through a lot of the programs that we have planned, and we're making cuts to that. So we're absolutely doing that. So I appreciate that question. I do want to make sure that everybody knows in this room that Fulton County Commissioners are not making $200,000 a year. Nowhere close. But I appreciate your question, and absolutely that's what we're doing, and that's what we should be doing. Recognizing that to ask anyone else to pay more taxes right now with all the inflation that's going on is a burden that's just not acceptable to the community. And I just want to say, I may not get the chance to say anything else before the evening's over, but I really appreciate hearing from everybody. That's the reason I came tonight. I think it's very important to hear directly from folks what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And I really don't want anyone to get the impression here that this is anywhere near settled. The negotiations are ongoing. They're very important. Friday will be a big day. And I really feel strongly that we can work this out. And I don't know anybody, well, maybe one person on the commission that feels like loss can go away, but the majority of the commission certainly does not feel that way.
Yeah, I have two ladies over here. I'm going to come back to you in the back, sir, and we'll get to everyone here. So, okay, we'll have.
Thank you. I'm Bridget Thorne. I'm a candidate to fill Liz's seat. I'm a Republican candidate, and I've been attending meetings for the past 20 months. And I'm kind of appalled when I see some of the spending that Fulton County does. I started out in elections. Our neighboring city, Cobb County, spends $10 per elector. Fulton County spends $50. Their budget has gone from $18 million to $35 million, and they say they're underfunded. They need about $45 million. I've watched when they did the ARPA negotiations, and I was unaware that none of the cities had gotten any of that money. I think it was $125 million. They were trying to think of ways to spend it. They decided, like, oh, our employees had to work during COVID, so let's all give them bonuses. Liz was very brilliant in saying, look, people lost jobs. They lost their businesses. They can't pay their rent. They're struggling because they have to pay now because their kids aren't in school. We don't need to be paying employees bonuses. But that wasn't the sentiment from the majority of the board. They didn't listen, and they paid a percentage bonus. So from my perspective, Liz also did an audit of the elections department. It was appalling, the findings in that, how our money is spent. They have no standard operating procedures. Finding 4, something was budgeted for $450,000 and it came in at $2 million. And they're, oops, we just didn't track it, sorry. There's other things like paying invoices when you didn't have the invoice yet. It was just appalling to watch, to see how our tax dollars are being spent. And I believe that our money is most wisely spent closest to home. The municipal dollars are best spent to try to keep our tax dollars as best we can close to home.
First of all, thank you for doing this. I just found out about this today. Liz, you are very brave. I think in the past you have supported us. But I've been involved in the election process, and there's so much waste. I don't know all the details, but I do know that in the little bit of knowledge that I have, Happy Faces spending $7.5 million when we have volunteers that are willing to work the elections. Just little things like that. In a time, I've attended some meetings, and you have homeless people that were pretty much, begging and turned away. And I just want to know, like, there's a vindictiveness when we attend these meetings. They don't want to hear what we have to say. We don't feel like they listen to us, and I don't know how else to be reached, to reach them. But the other thing is, when it comes to the balance of power, does the county have more power than the cities? They do?
In these negotiations, yes.
So,
yes.
Ma'am, so for example, lost revenue represents almost 40% of the budget of Johns Creek. It's only 2% for Fulton County. So they have had this attitude of, well, we'll just take the ball and bat and go home if you're not willing to go with our rate.
So that's a vindictiveness. That's not really what you do when you're really caring about your citizens. So if they're not willing to negotiate in public, then they're hiding something. So if you don't answer questions, you always wonder, like, why aren't they answering questions? So, but thank you for doing this.
I will say, Commissioner Hausman said something tonight that we haven't heard from a commissioner or any of them on the negotiating team, and that is that a majority of the commission is not willing to let this go away. And so I can tell you, serving on the negotiation team, that gives me a little slight hope of optimism, because the tenor in those meetings is much different than that. And while we know that of course, we have to take these things back to our councils, and the people on the negotiation team for the commission has to take it back to the commission. Being in that and having that tone and tenor of it could just go away being shared with us is refreshing to hear, that at least the majority of the commissioners seem like they're willing to try to resolve this. And so I'm hopeful that we can do that. So I thank you for sharing that with us because it hasn't been shared in the negotiation meetings. It'd be great to know who they are because we know who to tell y'all to call. But
We know who they aren't.
we know who they aren't, right? We do know who they aren't. We don't know who they are. But you know, as we move forward, hopefully we'll get more of that information. So I did just want to highlight that. And what you're saying is spot on. All of these comments are helpful. And as they said, we need you to let them know, right? Because we don't know who the 3 are or who the 4 are, right? There's wherever the majority is 4-3, so I'm assuming there's 4, right? It could be a super majority. But we don't know who the people are who are anti. All of them, let's say that. We know some. And so please just email them all.
Well, all of the cities have been doing all of our conversations in public meetings. It would be helpful if the commission would do public discussion of these as well.
They did it.
You did today? Okay, good.
My name is Paul Hershey, and I'd like to ask the county commissioner, do you do a zero-based budgeting or do you do a historical budget?
There is no zero-based budgeting in Fulton County.
Why not?
Good question.
The reason I'm asking this question is there's 2 elephants in the room that's not being discussed. Let's talk about this mismanagement of the county managers. I watched a Zoom meeting this morning, and they couldn't lead a group in silent prayer. The bottom line is the county sheriff comes in and talks about a $6 million deficit. First of all, the county, you're in the 9th month of a budget year, and you now find out you got a $6 million budget deficit? Then they find $3 million in a line item that they haven't used in 9 months. And when we talk about the weapons in jails, that's all over the country. And if you're talking about what's going on right now between you and the county, that's existed in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Reno, Nevada, and California and Arizona, and I've lived in all those states. The issue that you've got is, number one, nobody is doing an audit monthly budget, and the controller of Fulton County is not doing their job. If somebody is almost $2 million over budget, there's a problem. If the county sheriff wants to know how to improve the conditions of his jails, he needs to talk to P.J. Tanner down in Beaufort, South Carolina, and tell him I sent you. Because the bottom line is he's making money for the jail. And he's making a lot of money for the county. So what we need to do is stop thinking out of the box, or in the box, and start thinking out of the box. But what you've got is a total mismanagement of your county. And nobody's doing anything about it. And I would venture to say that the 3 commissioners that are negotiating with you are not up for re-election this year.
So 2 of them are, but they cleared the primary, so they're on the November ballot with no opposition. So go figure, right?
Okay, before I make my way right over there, I'm going to introduce Senator Albers here, John Albers from Alpharetta. Do you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, but I'm from Roswell. Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? First, these mayors up here have done a phenomenal job leading what will be the greatest organized group of government in Georgia's history here, creating these cities. And we created those cities for a reason. They're doing a great job. As is Commissioner Hausman, who has stood up for us time and time again, many times not being able to get past what she wanted to, but stood and fought the good fight with both Bob and Lee. So look, I helped create some of these cities, and we did it for a reason. And the problem was that Fulton was not listening at the time. We've got 15 cities, and we've municipalized 99.9% of this county to get government closest to the people. So we have your back, and here's my message to Fulton County. Either you work this out, or I'm going to work it out for you, and we're going to do it through the legislature. So it's time is up. There are real problems that we should be focusing on. There are real good ideas to help propel us forward. And to sit here and have to spend your time doing this rather than focusing on the things I know you want to continue to enhance, things like public safety, roads, improvement, and economic development, that you have to spend your time here for this issue is absurd. So, message again for Fulton County. You fix it, or I'm going to fix it. Thank you all. Take care.
Okay, we're going to go to this gentleman here. He had his comment first, then we're going to go to Maggie here, who's another candidate. We're going to go to this gentleman first.
Hi. Lance Ledbetter here in Roswell. I wanted to say, no applause. We're all good here. We're all good here. No, wanted to say basically, coming back to Mayor Wilson's comment in terms of, you know, the unasked, I don't want to, the term basically was, this is just totally absurd, right? So, Councilman, Fulton County Councilman Houseman, thank you for again being here. I know I've said it multiple times. I also want to say in advance of my comment, great appreciation for those that are not a part of Old Milton County, okay? And I think you can probably guess where I'm going with this, which is if Fulton County is going to play ball like this, then it's going to raise an ugly head from a political perspective. I don't know, it was 10 years ago, whatever it was, that Fulton County came out with 30% increase in, you know, in taxes that raised everybody's ugly head. And everybody started talking about Milton County, okay? I'm sure nobody really wants to go there again, especially in respect of those that are in South Fulton. Great respect because my son works College Park. But these are the type of conversations that are going to come to play if Fulton County is going to play dirty ball like this. Milton County is going to come and be resurrected again. We have 159 counties in the state of Georgia. I know there's a moratorium in terms of the level of counties that are allowed, but I'm sure Senator Albers will work with us in that respect and make something happen if we have to, among other issues.
Now, in fairness, we have another candidate here.
Hi, my name is Maggie Goldman, and I am the Democratic candidate running for Liz Hausman's seat. And in fairness, I thought I should share my thoughts on this. As it was mentioned, neither Bridget or I would have any authority on this issue, as it will be resolved one way or another before Liz's term is done. But for the future, as it was mentioned, I don't know why we're doing this at the 11th hour. I mean, do we not know that every 10 years this is going to come up? I would have started on this earlier, and I wondered why we didn't do it in May, and then I realized, well, because some of those were in primaries in the spring, so then you should have done it maybe a year or 2.5 earlier, but we should have started planning for this. You can't rip the rug out from people who've created budgets, and we need to do this in a manner that people can plan ahead in a way that is going to be sustainable for them. As a realtor, I work within budgets all the time. I can't sell people a house that they can't afford. So I look at budgets like I look at houses. And I understand you guys are very disappointed with the opening bid, but I have people who list houses in ridiculous prices all the time and buyers that come in at low offers. You know, that's just part of the way it works. And we usually look for win-wins. How can we make a seller and a buyer both make this work so we can buy a house? So that's kind of the way that I look at budgeting. I think we should have started much earlier and made this a much more open process. In terms of the Fulton County budget, I have tried to read their 453-page budget book, and there is remarkably void of actual details. There's lots of fluff in there and storytelling and things, but I can't tell what they're actually spending money on. So if I were to be elected, I will surely be doing everything I can to read everything I can find on everybody's budget and see what we can do about some of the wasteful spending it sounds like people think that there is.
Let me address why we didn't start earlier. The law lays out a timeline that was on the slide that I showed earlier. We cannot start negotiating before July 1st. So we started July 1st, and there's a timeline in there. We negotiate 2 months, and then we go into mediation and arbitration during the month of October. That's the phase we're moving in, September and October. That's what we're moving into now. But the law lays out a specific timeline with a drop dead date of midnight on December 30 for everybody to be completed. So that's why the process has gone the way it's gone.
This gentleman wanted 30 more seconds. I'll give it to him. Then I'll go right over here to the gentleman in the green shirt, and then over here, and we'll come over here. Yeah.
My apologies. Real quick, Commissioner Hausman, I ask you, you're not running for a re-election. God, thank you for what you've done. I'm sure you feel on multiple occasions you're one of few in terms of your voice being heard within Fulton County and the Commissioner. Write a book. You know everything that's going on behind the scenes. You know the dirt. Hold them accountable. Speak up. After you're out of office, we all want to hear it. We want to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Any book offers? Okay, you want to come this way, sir? Yeah, I'll scoot over here.
I'll write the foreword.
Thank you. I'm John Paulson, and I'm from Sandy Springs. I'm also on the Sandy Springs City Council. So anybody here from Sandy Springs? Here we go. I'm cursed with a logical brain, as the mayor sometimes points out. So I hear the strife that's happening at the Fulton County Jail. And I think, geez, that's really unfortunate. That's really too bad. Whoever's been managing that for the last 10 or 20 years really needs to be taken out and not necessarily shot. That's unfair. That needs to be corrected. This is not a problem that has dropped on Fulton County's lap in the last 6 months. Fulton County's been responsible for this for years. And now all of a sudden it's a crisis. And all of a sudden Fulton County needs more money to solve this and other problems, which they should have been dealing with years ago. So the idea of putting more money into a county government that's has not been managing things correctly or very well in the past doesn't make any logical sense to me. So anyway, my 2 cents.
One more city council member.
If I ask the Johns Creek people to give a cheer, we'll beat you badly. Mayors and Commissioner, there's yet another reason to play nice, as Tom Corrigan said. Fulton County is one of the few counties which taxes its senior citizens after they once they are 65, they still pay their school taxes at a higher rate. Do you want to give them one more reason to cross McGinnis Ferry into South Forsyth? I hope come October we hear some good news from you folks. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do another question back here. Then we're going to start to wrap up the question because I do want to get some time for everyone to kind of give some closing remarks here, but we're going to have a few more questions here.
Commissioner Hausman, I have a question for you. I know that we have pointed out about the prison and the hospital issues where we need the money for the county, but what are the other expenses which the county has? Because I have heard the expenses which the city has where we are using the lost money, but what are the other places where the county is using that money for? Or what are the other expenses county has?
Well, right now, I mean, the reality is it's such a small amount of money that I can't even answer that question because it's only about 2% of our budget. So it's almost minuscule.
What's the plan for the rest of it?
Again, the 35% that's on the table is not on the table. That was not, pardon me? Well, I mean, again, it's over time. It's over 10 years. It's not a one time. It's not in the first year. It's growth.
Okay, we have
no. I mean,
here.
again, the two major expenses are the jail. It's public safety. It's really not illegal. That is a public safety item, so that is not considered illegal. And then the medical, the health needs that we have are the two main things.
Okay, Representative.
I just want to say to your point, for the first time ever, we did pass in a bipartisan, with the state legislature, a educational tax abatement for our senior citizens in Fulton County on their property tax. It's a start, it's small, but it's coming into fruition this year, so first time ever. And then just, I know we're, state legislators, it's between the county and the cities, but I would offer those of us that are within the Fulton delegation within the state legislature, as Senator Albers and my colleague here, Representative McLaurin and others, that if we can, we don't want to get in the middle of it, but if we can also come in and help in any way, talk to see how we can help resolve this prior to the December deadline. Happy to help.
We'll go back here to this gentleman.
I live in Milton, so one of us showed up.
Thank you.
Oh, I got another one. We got two. So,
Who's minding the horses?
my question's for Commissioner Ellis, but he's not here. So, what I'm understanding is if the lost expires, my property taxes in the city and likely my property taxes in the county are going to go up. What specific services are the county going to offer my family and my fellow residents for that money that I give? I work in Sandy Springs. I go to church in Roswell. I live in Milton. Anytime I've needed anything, it's been a city municipal service that showed up. I've never had Fulton County Police, Fulton County Fire respond. Is that something they're going to start doing when they start taking that extra money?
The answer is there is no Fulton County Fire
I want
Police
to
anymore.
thank you for coming out, and I want everyone here to do me a favor. When you open your property tax bill come October, and you get your city tax bill and your county tax bill, you tell me how far each dollar goes and where a bigger bang for the buck is. So thank you for coming out from the city of Milton. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll do one more question here, then we'll have a chance for all the mayors to go around the horn real quick because we're about 8:45 right now. So one more question.
First of all, thank you all so much. It's a big deal, I think, to all of us that all of you, 15 mayors across such a wide variety of demographics and socioeconomic communities can come together on this and agree. You don't always see that, don't hardly ever see that in government these days, so we really appreciate that. And it also says a lot about how far Fulton County is from what we all want. And I'd like to see actually a raise of hands up here and in the room of who thinks that Fulton County is doing a good job with the 5% that they get now. Is there anyone in this room? Don't give them a raise. I'm asking all of you. I think that I speak for everyone here. Do not give them a raise. Can you hear me? Don't give them a raise.
Okay, thanks for everyone's eager participation. We do have time. I guess we'll go down the line however you want to do this, Mayor Wilson, or start with Mayor Paul and go down. We have some time for some final remarks, some closing statements here.
Let's start with Rusty.
Well, thank you. A committed citizenry is the most important thing we have, and you are committed. You're here. You care. Thank you. Thank you for caring about your community and your neighborhood and your city and your county. It's important. Secondly, I'm just going to say one more time, if you disagree with us, tell us. We need to hear you. But if you agree or disagree with the county, make sure you personally let them know. Because that's the only way we're going to get this thing resolved, because right now, everything has been done in a vacuum. The reason we're doing this is the cities have been very concerned that we have been doing this outside the public view. And we just basically said in our last meeting, no more. The public has a right to know what's being done with their tax dollars. Now you know. Go forth and do something about it.
Amen. Thank you, Mayor Paul. Mayor Still.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what my friend Mayor Paul just said. You know, now you know, so please let Fulton County know. I'm encouraged by the turnout, by some of the conversation, the questions, the information that we shared tonight, and I feel like that if nothing else, they're going to have to listen to you because you are their constituents as well. So let them know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Still. Mayor Jameson.
Yes, thank you all for coming out tonight. As you can see, all 15 cities are united. All of y'all are united, and this is a very, very strong, and we want this to be an open process. I also want to really thank our negotiating team. This is an enormous amount of time that has taken. You know, Mayor Paul and Mayor Gilvin, who represent the North for us, it is just a tremendous time. I know Friday we're going to be there all day long, all 15 mayors. I know Mayor Holiday Ingram, Mayor Dickens from Atlanta, and who's the other one from South Fulton?
Mayor Bodie.
Clark Bodie.
Mayor Bodie. So thank you all for coming out. This is really a huge, strong show of support.
Thank you, Mayor Jameson. Mayor Bradberry.
I'll just keep it brief. Thank you for coming out. Obviously, we have realized tonight that we have a problem that we need to deal with, and the solution really lies with you. And I encourage you to share your thoughts about tonight's conversation with your friends, your neighbors on social media. I encourage you to reach out to your county commissioners. You have a right to know what are their thoughts on this? What do they think is appropriate? I think that the mayors have all been very forthright. I think that we have been good to present good and clear information. I think that there is a desire on our part to negotiate in good faith. I'll just point out, this is something that Fulton County put out yesterday, I assume kind of in preparation for this meeting. This is a Fulton County fact sheet that they're putting out. This fact sheet, you could drive a truck through it, it's so full of holes. I'll probably be spending some time at our next city council meeting going through point by point, different things are just not accurate. And I'm not saying that to be disparaging, I'm just saying that we've got to have a common set of facts. Whether it's city or county, you are a resident, we share you, right? You're in both, you're in the cities and in the county. So there's really no one that's going to win. We're all either going to win or we're all going to lose. And part of the way we can get through this together in a successful way is if we start with good information. We're not against one another. We're all hopefully trying to pull in the same direction towards a better county, city, metro Atlanta community. So again, I appreciate it. I don't know what the other mayors say. I'm not going to ask you for a response tonight, but I'm wondering if maybe we shouldn't do another one of these in a month. And maybe you bring some friends and we'll have another follow-up conversation to see what was heard, what was listened to, and where do we stand a month from now. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor Bradberry. Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Thank you. And again, thank you all so much for being engaged. I always say teamwork makes the dream work, and we are absolutely stronger together. And so seeing so many of you here tonight, I see you as a multiplier. Somebody said 4. I know y'all know at least 20 people, if not more, that we need to help get this message out to. One of the, Mayor Bradberry just mentioned the fact sheet, and as one of the negotiation team members, the county's position is that the city's offer reduces their amount and their offer maintains our current funding, and that's not true. The proposal that was shared is based upon 2021 lost revenue rates or funding for the cities and not 2022, right? And so both positions right now are some level of compromise. And so what I would say is that we heard that loss is 2% of the county's budget. 2%. For the cities, you heard some cities say over 20, 40%. Like, that is a lot, right? So the county could say, instead of, it's not Commissioner Hausman, but what we've heard from the chairman, that this could go away. I mean, you could let 2% go away, or 2% could be so insignificant to you that you could show up and say, let the cities have what they need because we're good, right? And so the young lady who was the last speaker, she said, don't give them a raise. And I say, remember SOL, right? We either gonna be SOL or save our loss, right? But whether or not they get a raise is based upon whether or not you let them know that you don't think they deserve a raise, or let them know what your position is. So I echo what my colleagues have said. We need you. We have all been about making this public, right? And we realize we're at a point, we just said, forget, we can no longer not allow you to be a part of this process and make sure that we're communicating collectively together. So if it's don't give them a raise, SOL, let's save our loss, and I'm gonna go to the person who created SOL, Mayor Gilvin.
Thank you, Mayor Holiday Ingram. Mayor Jim Gilvin.
I don't know if I want to take credit for saving SOL. I'll just say, first, I really want to thank Mayor Bradberry for the idea of having this. And I want to thank Mayor Wilson and his staff, because I know he didn't do it. Y'all just did it for him. It made him look good, but you did make him look good. And I just want to say, I'm grateful personally for this event, because I'm an optimist. I mean, I didn't run for office because I was a defeatist. I believe we can do things right, and I believe government can work. And so as I went into that first mediation meeting, I was optimistic. Hey, you know, we've had a good relationship with Fulton County in the past. We've been able to work things out. This is going to be okay. We're going to come out and everybody's going to have a win. And for the last 3 meetings I've had to sit through, I sat there the entire time thinking I would be better spending my time doing anything else, because nothing that was said in those last 3 meetings mattered one bit, because we'd walk out, the negotiating team would have an understanding of what happened, we'd show up the next meeting, and the 3 negotiators for Fulton County would completely change the game. Chairman Pitts in the first meeting, halfway through, just stood up without any explanation and left. Now that might be some 1960s negotiating tactic that he read in a book somewhere, but it's rude, and it really doesn't help resolve conflicts. This is the first time in months I've been optimistic that this may actually work out for the people and the taxpayers of Fulton County. And I'm grateful to all of you for making it happen.
Thank you, Mayor Gilvin. Mayor Motley Broom.
Mayor Bradberry had such a great idea that we're going to do it again next Wednesday on at the second largest convention center in the state, which is in College Park. So, if you would like to join us, it will be at 7:00 p.m. And we'll make sure your parking is free. You know, usually we charge $10, but not to talk about this stuff. Because it is so vitally important that everyone in the county knows what's going on and that we are united in this. This is absolutely critical. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this and for you staying here. It's almost 9 o'clock.
It's early in Roswell.
But, okay, so there might be some people in the audience who sent me emails about happy faces. Maybe. But I got a lot of them. And I didn't have anything to do with happy faces because it was a county commissioner's decision. But we got those emails. I got them by the dozens. So I know that you guys can go ahead and reach out to the commissioners and express what you are feeling. So do it again. Like, I got your happy faces emails. Do it again. Let them know what you are thinking about this, because this will come down to you using your voices. And we are here to serve you. We listen to you. This is not about, you know, one of the things that really got me with the CARES Act funding was like the line item for $300,000 worth of new cars. I was like, why? Can't you just drive around in new cars old cars and make sure that people get vaccinated that way? Sorry? COVID cars. They were $300,000 of them from Allen Vigil Ford. I never understood that when we couldn't get a dime and we had to threaten litigation to get any piece of the pie. We didn't engage you as much in that situation, but we are here now. We are asking for your support. We are asking for your voice. We're going to do it again at the second largest convention center in the state next Wednesday. And I hope some of my northern colleagues will join us, because it really does matter to each and every single person in the county. So thanks again for being here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor Motley Broom. Commissioner Liz Hausman.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here to listen tonight. I've actually learned a lot. Great to hear from the cities, and I hope you know that I'm very sympathetic to what this means to you. Having been with the city and understanding the limitations of your budget and the importance, I hear you, okay? And so I will take that back, and I'm really very confident that the other commissioners and you and the mayors, we will come to an agreement that is a win for everybody. Nobody wants anybody to have anything less than they have today. I can tell you that with certainty. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here to listen, to hear from the folks, to hear from y'all. You were talking about the CARES money. I want to remind you that I was with y'all then,
Yes, you were. Yes.
okay? And I'm with you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hausman. Steve Gilbert, a big round of applause for Steve Gilbert for Channel 2. Steve, you made it look easy. Obviously, would be remiss if I didn't thank the incredible staff from the City of Roswell, City Administrator Randy Knight and Robin Kelly and their team. Most importantly, we would like to thank you. Thank you for taking your time. This matters. This is one of the most important things that gets done every 10 years. This is a big deal. And you can't get informed enough, and you cannot share enough with your neighbors. This is critical. It's $3 to $4 billion of tax relief that's on the table for the next 10 years. And this will be one. It's funny sometimes we forget in politics, we spend so much time and attention on national politics, and even state politics. And sometimes we forget it's the little local politics. And boy, they impact you. And this one can really impact you. So please share with your neighbors, your friends. This matters. Please go to College Park next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock.
Georgia International Convention Center.
Georgia International Convention Center.
Second largest.
Second largest. Thank you. God bless for everybody being here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
That's the last place.